Hello, and welcome to episode 106 of the Casual Try Hard podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm James.
And it's Kaldheim time.
Yay!
We get new magic cards.
What's yay in Norse?
I don't know. Ah. Yeah. If you're Norse, sorry if we were like Norsist there.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to be. If you'd like to cancel us on Twitter, you can get at us at CasualTryPod.
Sure, Facebook might ban us on CasualTryHardMTG. You can also drop us an email if you'd like to and tell us how Norsist we are.
Just direct hate mail.
Yeah, show at CasualTryHardMTG.com. Don't forget, if you guys are looking to pick up any singles from Kaldheim, which I know you are, please use our TCG Player affiliate link, tcg.casualtryhardmtg.com. Anything you purchase after following that link will help us support the show. We get a TCG kicks us back a little sliver up to help keep the show rolling. If you guys like the show, please consider supporting the show more directly by becoming a patron, even if it's just a couple bucks, whatever you can scrape together. It'll really help us grow the show a little bit. I'm hoping that once we get to start playing in paper, we have a couple ideas for like an overarching episode series that I'm hoping will grow the show a bit, and Patreon will help us do that. So please consider chipping in. Patrons get early access to our show notes. Usually I post them up the day before the show goes live, so you guys get a sneak peek as to what we're going to be talking about. You also get to listen to us ramble on and on and on during pre-show about what's going on in our normal everyday lives. And some of you guys have received them already. I got a couple messages on Discord, but I sent out our first round of itty-bitty patron gifts. So I hope you guys enjoyed those, and there'll be more to come.
Yeah.
Yep.
These will be,
I thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah. I like them. I don't know exactly. I know what you got, but I don't know exactly like which of them you sent out.
Well, I went in order, if that makes sense to you.
Okay. So one from you and one from me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you got it's a set from me. It's a very specific set.
I typed out a nice little letter, and I told them that they'd have to guess the theme.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll let them. We'll see if they get to it. Like once they get to the island, it should be pretty obvious. But we'll see.
Well, the forest is pretty good too.
The forest is pretty good. So there you go.
I was down at the game store over the weekend, and I ended up with a whole slew of Zendikar promo pack arena codes. So I got a bunch of them to get out. Hop on over to our Discord channel. Should be a link in the description. There's a link on Facebook and a link on Twitter. If you guys can't get in, shoot us a message some other way, and we'll send you an invite link to get into our Discord. But if you post up we have a freebies room in our Discord. If you post up in there saying you're looking for the Zendikar promo packs, I don't think I'll run out. So I'll send you're allowed 4 per account. Anybody that posts up in there and wants Zendikar promo pack codes, I'll send you 4 of them. So free stuff.
Okay, so we have a collection of cards from Kaldheim to go through that we thought were interesting, that people in Discord or on Facebook asked us to talk about, or that the world of Magic has been kind of buzzing about and we wanted to get our 2 cents worth in.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much organized by color?
Kind of, sort of. We skip around a bit towards the end. I played around with the format for the episode a little bit. Normally we do everything by color, and then we'll do some listener cards at the end. This time I went a little bit different. I incorporated some of the listener cards in with the by color in the beginning, and then at the end we're going to talk about some synergy stuff instead of just single cards.
Okay. So we're starting with white. And the first card is the new Wrath. Doomscar.
Yep.
So it's 3 white for a sorcery, destroy all creatures.
Or is it?
Or is it? And it has Foretell.
Right.
So 2 mana to exile it, and then its Foretell cost to cast it from exile is 1 white.
Yep. Now you can't, with Foretell, you can't cast it on the same turn. It has to be a later turn, right?
Yeah. So with Instance, though, like you could foretell it on your turn and then cast it on your opponent's turn, like in the same turn cycle. But yeah, you couldn't just like, I don't know why you'd want to like foretell Doomscar and then cast it.
Well, I mean, there's stuff that cares about foretelling cards.
Yeah, but and I guess there are some foretell cards that are cheaper, or change the overall mana cost instead of being like 2 black, they end up being like 3 and a black.
Yeah.
Right. So Doomscar is what had been the like going rate for a Wrath from cons until Kaya's Wrath.
Yeah, I think so. Well, until not Kaya's Wrath.
If you want
Bantu's Last Stand.
Bantu's, yeah. But I mean, it had the downside of it none of your lands untapped.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a pretty big downside.
Yeah.
Saw no play.
Yeah, so like I think Kaya's Wrath, like Settle the Wreckage is kind of a weird Wrath, but like Kaya's Wrath is the like first 4 mana removal spell, and it was white, black.
Right.
First 4 mana removal spell since cons, because they had said like, yeah, we don't want to do 4 mana Wraths anymore because Supreme Verdict was miserable.
Yeah,
and then they were
that was the previous like 4 mana Wrath, right? That was the most recent one.
Yeah. Before Kaya's Wrath and the Shadow of the Sky.
Yep.
So, like, 5 mana is kind of what we have expected from Wraths in the past. In Standard. And this one, like, just fits that bill. But the fact that I guess there's a chance against, like, Gruul where you could, like, foretell it and then sweep up their board on 3.
Yeah.
As opposed to being dead, which is probably a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and kill like a Pelt Collector, Robber of the Rich, and Spellbreaker.
Yeah.
Seems pretty good.
Or whatever's in Gruul now. Is it like Goose, Robber, Kazandu Mammoth?
Yeah, probably.
Or something, right? Yeah, so like that flexibility is good. Like it does hurt you having to take off turn 2.
Yeah.
Like later, if you don't get it early, it comes harder to get that discount. Let's say you like play a 2 mana removal spell on turn 4, and then you can foretell this, and then in a turn when you need a Wrath, you can like Wrath for 3 mana, and then maybe have 4 mana or 3 mana left over to then like develop out your board.
Yeah.
As opposed to just having to sink your entire turn into your Wrath.
Doomstar. Yeah. Now it is kind of interesting that the foretell cost and the cost to foretell add up to exactly the mana cost here. So, like, it's not really forcing you to foretell it. Like, if you draw it later, you don't have to foretell it. You can just cast it.
Yeah. Like, you get the discount, like, if you get to do it on 2.
Right.
And just wait.
Yeah.
But, like, you don't need the discount. It's, like, kind of costed at what we've come to expect.
Yeah.
For these cards.
Yeah.
An interesting thing is a lot of times like aggro decks will maybe use like Hand Disruption to like try to get a Wrath. Right now, like you can't like play your 1-drop and like be like, okay, I'll just wait till turn 2 or turn 3 to like try to work my discard spell in because they can just hide it by foretelling it.
Yeah, duress won't hit it.
Yeah, and they have nothing that interacts with cards in the foretell zone or whatever.
Right. Well, not on Arena, we don't.
Yeah. Is there anything in any set?
Yeah, Wasteland Strangler.
Okay. Okay.
He ingests stuff from BFC does. Yeah. So I have kind of one comment and question for you, and it'll kind of lead into the next card here. And that's that typically the decks that are in a market for definitely a 5 mana Wrath, but usually a 4 mana Wrath also, are going to be more control decks. So, like a control deck, what does a control deck normally do on turn 2? Like, what are you sacrificing? But like, what as a control deck, what are you giving up to foretell this on turn 2?
In Standard right now, you're giving up Birth of Meletus as like blocker plus like way to make sure you hit your 3rd land drop.
Yeah.
Or like the kind of generic thing that you do on turn 2 is a lot of times you're going to hold up your Essence Scatter.
Yeah.
type card, like your conditional 2-mana counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
Or, in white, sometimes like some sort of conditional like exile based removal. So like Seal Away was a thing that would happen on 2 a lot.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So, but I would say it's usually holding up some sort of counter, some sort of interaction.
Yeah, like a negate, or like you said, an Essence Scatter or something.
Yeah, just a way to like interact cheaply to like snag their 3-drop.
Yeah. And like if you're leaving or if you're foregoing an Essence Scatter, there's not really a downside to Doomscar. I mean, they're going to get whatever value they get out of their 2-drop for a turn, but
yeah, there's not. But I don't know. I think if you're on the draw,
mm-hmm.
and you get to like get their 2 and their 3-drop with what essentially is like your wrath on quote unquote 3, like you're pretty happy with that, like having not gotten to Essence Scatter their 3.
Right.
I guess being on the play, like it still just eats your whole like 4th turn on some level to like get their 3-drop.
Right.
So like on the drop might be better because you're gonna get their 2 and their 3.
Yeah.
And like have your 4th turn available to like all that mana to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like you're usually developing your mana or holding up some sort of like counterspell on 2.
I guess I was thinking like in the past, typically control decks have played a whole bunch of tap lands. And that's normally what they did on like turns 1 and 2 was play to tap land.
Oh no, there's absolutely going to be like the awkwardness of your mana base. You have like 2 temples in your opening hand, and like, or you have like 2 temples and then one of the MDFC lands.
Yeah.
And you like don't want to go tap land MDFC land so you can play your like foretell your spell. And then, like, play your tap land on 3, because that kind of defeats the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, yeah, that will be awkward with, like, the temples and, like, Fabled Passage.
Yeah, makes it kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So, kind of what we're laying out is going to be what I think is going to be a typical play pattern for Doomscar, is to make sure you foretell it on 2, and then, when it's right to pop it, whether it's turn 3 or 4, or, whenever they've built their board out, pop it. But I think foretelling it on 2 in this case is pretty important, right?
Yeah. So you have the flexibility to do on your turn 3 or turn 4.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't want to then like foretell it on 4. Like you could get away with like foretelling it later, but
yeah, but I think it loses some value if you're foretelling it later on, though.
Yeah, because like at some point it's just like, oh, I could have just spent this 5 mana all in 1 turn.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not getting to cast it early.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think the benefit of being able to foretell it on 2 is you're getting to do something that you normally wouldn't get to do on turn 3.
Right. Or like on turn 5, hold up interaction and then pop this. Like, cast this with a negate backup or something.
Yeah, like, whereas, like, having to, like, foretell it on 4 and eating, like, half your turn 4 so that you can hold up the negate backup might be the right thing to do, but it's not going to feel great.
Yeah. So the reason that I wanted to talk about Doomscar in the vein of, like, control decks, and specifically the timing, was this next card, which is Starnheim Unleashed. It's 2 white for a sorcery. It says, create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. So for 2 white, you make a Sarah Angel. And it says, if this spell was foretold, create X of those tokens instead. And this is foretell for XX white. So for 3 mana, it makes 1 4/4. For 5 mana, it makes 2 4/4s. For 7 mana, it makes 3 4/4s.
Yes.
Like, the reason that I kind of wanted to talk about this right after the last one and talk about control in particular is Doomscar, I think, really rewards you for foretelling it on turn 2, where like you said, you want to get the discount in a later turn. Whereas Starnheim Unleashed is almost a completely different spell when you foretell it. And you don't really want to cast it until you've got the game under control. So, like, this is your finisher. Yeah. So if you end up with 2 extra mana on turn 5 or 6 or whatever, you're not really going to miss that 2 mana because you still have some form of interaction or card selection to do with the rest of your mana. And then, whenever you end up having everything under control, you make a bunch of angels and squish.
Yeah, so you could see like a play pattern where, let's say on an earlier turn, I forget what it's called, there's a foretell. Oh, there we go. Behold the Multiverse, right?
Yep.
It foretells for 2, and then you can cast it for 2. So, like, you could do something where on your turn 4, you're like, okay, I'm going to foretell my Starnheim Unleashed.
Yep.
And I'm going to be able to hold up my Negate/Essence Scatter, plus also be able to cast this Behold the Multiverse.
Yeah.
In, like, my turn 4 window.
Right.
So, like, you're using half your mana to foretell, but you're also, like, that other half your mana is, like, spoken for. Where it's like, well, I can cast my draw spell, or I can cast my counter spell, or some other piece of interaction. Yep. And then you can just wait on Starnheim Unleashed. Until, like you said, you've wrath the board and killed a bunch of stuff, and they're, like, to no cards in hand. And then you can just be like, okay, I have to fade, like, a draw step. I'm going to do this for 9, and I'll kill you next turn.
Yeah.
Or, X equals 4. And just be like, okay, I'll kill you.
Right.
It's very much Entreat the Angels.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I was going to compare this to, is Entreat. Like, depending on how much card selection is in your deck, and I know we're talking about older formats with a lot better card selection, but this is kind of easier to set up Entreat.
It is. Right, like, if you just get it in your, like, anywhere you play it, right, you don't have to, like, float it on top of your deck.
Right.
Or, like, brainstorm it back on top. You just get to, like, set it aside when you draw it. You're just like, okay, this is taken care of now.
I'll see you later.
Yeah. Again, like, it's also not something where you get stuck with your finisher in your hand early in the game and, like, leave it vulnerable to hand disruption.
Yeah.
Right? So you're just like, oh, I have this. I'm going to set this over here. And now your, Duress Thoughtseize opponent just doesn't have any way to interact with it. If they didn't get it, like, immediately, like, if it wasn't in your hand turn 1.
Yeah.
Right? You just hide it, and then they burn all their hand disruption on the cards that you have, and then this is just always sitting there safe.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. Like, it really, like hand disruption is good early and, like, bad late, but if, like, the most impactful spell in your matchup, you can just hide from hand disruption.
Yeah, it makes it really awkward. Especially since, like, right now, hand disruption, like, the only main deck hand disruption is Anguish. Was it, or Agonizing Remorse?
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's not fast enough.
It's 2 mana. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, even in, like, Pioneer, like, for Doomscar, right? Yeah. Like, a mono black aggro deck, if they don't catch you, like, with their hand disruption, like, on turn 1, you can hide your Wrath and then sweep up their board on 3.
Yeah, a lot of times for the aggro player, it's more important to get, that early damage in, so they'll wait for their discard spell until they can squeeze it in with another threat or something.
Yeah, and, if you're really concerned about a single card, right, like their Wrath, right, you're going to want to wait till, okay, they're going to play a 4-mana Wrath, let's say. Well, you want to wait till turn 3, because that's giving them the most chances to draw it. Right. And this, you're just like, okay, hide it, you can't interact. Same with Starnheim Unleashed. If you're like, okay, they have, like, 2 ways to kill me in their deck, I'm going to, like, bring in hand disruption to try to catch it, and then it doesn't work. Right. So it's awkward.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to, like, change those interactions for those kind of decks.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think Foretell certainly makes hand disruption weaker. Not that it was super strong in this standard format anyway, but it definitely makes it weaker. So we have a couple more control cards that we're going to talk about, coming up pretty quick here. But we had one of our listeners, MTG Aggro Player, wanted to know specifically about blue-white control and these foretell cards. So do you think that, we've talked about it quite a bit now. Do you think that like blue-white control is, back on the menu? Is it a viable archetype? Does it change at all from like the Yorion piles that we've been seeing? Is this enough of an incentive to make it change?
I feel like the Yorion piles are just too powerful.
Yeah.
And I think it depends if the format's really aggro and like you have to be able to like Doomscar on turn 3, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if like Doomscar is enough of an upgrade on Shatter the Sky.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can argue that 1 mana is, worth letting your opponent maybe draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
But, there could just be a world where like the format's too fast.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I have to like the best way for me to win is like foretell a Doomscar.
Yeah.
There's a card, I don't know if it's on our list, that could very much incentivize you to splitting your Wraths.
Okay.
Tybalt's Trickery.
We talked about it the other day, so I did not include it in the list, but we can talk about it now.
But just, there might be a situation where Doomscar, even if it's not the best option, because Shatter the Sky might be better because it's just 4 mana, right? Yeah. If you're playing against someone who's playing red, they could bring in a Tybalt's Trickery and counter your Shatter the Sky, and if you reveal another Shatter the Sky, you don't get to cast that. But if you reveal a Doomscar, you do get to cast it.
Right.
So there could be an argument for like splitting your Wraths a little bit to increase your chances of hitting one off of like a Trickery.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe you want 5 Wraths total, and you're like, maybe the right split is 3 Shatter the Skies and 2 Doomscars or something.
Doomscars. Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think the Yorion kind of control-ish decks are so powerful and have like such a big like go over the top late game with this blinking Elspeth Conquers Death.
Yeah.
I don't know if Doomscar puts it over the top. The like maybe you go to like a more streamlined like classic just like draw go control deck.
Oh, I mean, I definitely think so. Both Doomscar and Starnheim Unleashed are both way closer analogs to like what used to be blue-white control than what is currently blue-white control.
I just worry that like I don't know what the other good like what's the other good white removal? Like Glass Casket's fine.
I mean, you still get to play Elspeth Conquers Death.
Yeah, I mean, but at that point,
you get to play what is it, the spirit from Zendikar?
Remorse
Apparition.
Yeah, Skyclave Apparition. But like those 2 cards work so well with Yorion.
Yeah,
is it better to do like, because I think like if you're like hard blue white like Doomscar, or like you're like 8 Wrath, right? You're like 4 Shatter the Sky, 4 Doomscar, right? You're not playing Skyclave Apparition.
Right.
You've got to get your like, is Elspeth Conquered Death as your Planeswalker removal.
Yeah.
And then winning with... Also, though, is like Starnheim Unleashed better than just like having your win condition be Castle Ardenvale? I mean, it's way faster.
Yeah.
But like, is it better than just like having your win condition rolled up in your land slot?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I think the problem with like blue-white control right now is like recently they've really leaned heavily on Planeswalkers.
Right.
And I don't know what like there's not like a blue-white super controlling Planeswalker unless our new Planeswalker is better than I think it is, the blue-white one.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I didn't include it on today's list because I don't think it is. Like how we started this conversation, though, is a good point. I think it depends on how good the aggro decks are, because the like Blinky Yorion control decks they kind of prey on the mid-range decks that are trying to go big in the mid-range.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if there's a dedicated aggro deck that's just looking to dead you a lot of times the Yori index can be too slow for that. And something like, wrathing the board on turn 3, wrathing the board on turn 4, like an aggro deck cannot come back from that.
Yeah, like if you foretell a Doomscar and then you get 3 creatures on turn 3, and then they're like, haha, I held back
2 creatures.
2 creatures, and they play 2/2 drops.
Yeah.
And you're like, cool, Shatter the Sky.
Yeah.
At that point, those creatures probably aren't big enough to trigger the draw card clause on Shatter the Sky, so you just hard wrath them. And now
they're also empty-handed, and you've still got 5 cards in your hand.
Yeah, now they have nothing, and you just get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So
I think it depends if there is a good aggro deck in the format that's just looking to dead you on turn 4. I think something more akin to what used to be blue-white control will be more viable than what is currently blue-white control.
Yeah, I also think that with a lot of the ramp we have, right, that's always something that control decks struggle with.
Yeah.
Is ramp decks, because every one of their threats is must answer, and eventually you run out of your counter spells.
Yeah.
And then you just can't do anything anymore.
No,
right?
I mean, especially lately when all of your threats also draw you cards.
Yeah, or they resolve the Genesis Ultimatum and they just draw 5 cards and all the mana to cast them.
Right.
And it's oh, I guess I lost now.
Yeah.
They played a 7 mana, draw 5, cast the spells in your hand.
Right.
Rough.
Good talks.
Good talk. All right. Now for a more aggressive white card.
Oh, yeah.
Resplendent Marshal.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 white for a 3/3 flying Angel Warrior.
No, that's a relevant creature type.
That is a relevant creature type. And so when this comes into play or dies, you may exile another creature card from your graveyard. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control other than Resplendent Marshal that shares a creature type with the exiled card. So it's kind of, it's going to pay you for being tribal angels or tribal warriors.
Well, it's each other creature. So it doesn't care if you're angel warrior. This wants to be in a deck with everything else that's the same.
Yeah, fair. So
it doesn't care. It's not going to get the counter anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
So it could be rogues and you just...
Yeah.
But it's awkward, though, that you have, for you to get the ETB trigger, you have to have a creature in your graveyard.
Yeah.
So on turn 3, more than likely, it's not going to get you the trigger.
Right.
Right, because if you go 1/2 Resplendent Marshal, there shouldn't be anything in your graveyard.
Yeah, and also your 3-drop 3/3 flyer in white, you don't actively want to put that in your graveyard to get a counter on your team either.
Yeah, but you have to
you kind of want to protect it.
Yeah, and you have to exile another creature, so you don't even get to when it dies, it can't exile itself.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to have stuff in your graveyard to make this work, and so
which white's not great at.
Yeah, white's not great at putting stuff there.
You do have the dog.
Yeah, but he's
to make something indestructible. And you have was it LC at a Life's Bounty kind of does the same thing.
Yeah, but they're awkward, not normal creature types.
Oh, that's true.
Because then you just get a bunch of big dogs, get a bunch of 2/2 selfless saviors, whose job is to protect your 3/3 flyer.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Yeah. So it seems like it's a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. Right? I feel like you have to read this card as a 3/3 flyer for 3. Is that good enough? And I think the answer is probably no. I think it's good enough if you get a whole bunch of counters when it comes into play. Then you're at odds. You're okay, I want to put a bunch of creatures on the battlefield. And then I want to have creatures in my graveyard so I can trigger this thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the way white puts a bunch of creatures in the graveyard or on the battlefield is through token generation.
Right.
Right. So
So you're going to have a bunch of soldiers or something that don't necessarily share a creature type with anything.
Yeah, and so that makes it difficult. See, I don't
Yeah.
know, like, I think you just have to read this as, like, you know, a 3-mana 3/3 flyer. That...
Yeah, it's kind of weird because the stats don't. Normally, you can look at a card and kind of get a feel for what the card wants you to do. And, like, this was the problem that I had with, I think, when we were trying to evaluate the Titans and Theros. Like, you look at them, and what the card wants you to do isn't necessarily what the card says. Like, the stats on this card, 3-mana 3/3 flyer, say aggro. But
yeah.
the text on this card, like, it's almost impossible to cast this and get value on turn 3. Like, you almost want to cast this on turn 5 after you've traded like a creature or two and built a board out.
Yeah, like where it's more like a finisher, where it's just like, okay, this is going to come down and put like 4 extra power on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to attack.
Yeah.
So it just...
I agree, though. It's in the wrong color to set it up, and it seems like it's awkward to set up.
Yeah, and like, I mean, think about how much better, like, I know it was a little harder to cast, but like Benelish Marshall.
Yeah.
Right? It was a 3-mana 3/3. It was ground bound, but all your stuff just got +1/+1.
Right.
Right? Like, the setup was play creatures.
Right.
This is play creatures and have some of them die, please.
Mm-hmm.
So it's awkward.
Yeah,
so
I agree. I think it's awkward.
I'm not super sold on this. Is like, I don't think this would go in like a white aggressive deck.
No, like, the only thing that I can think of that's worth pointing out is that Conclave Marshal is still around.
Oh yeah, the green-white counters
Or
guy.
Conclave Mentor, yeah. He was in Core 21, right? So he's still around.
Yes.
Like, this kind of plays well with that, but like, you want to have a board built out. Like, what is the Conclave Mentor? It's an elf something, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like, I don't even know what deck that wants to be. I don't know. It just seems really awkward. It seems really hard to set up.
Yeah. And like, the payoff's not like huge.
Yeah.
Next we have Righteous Valkyrie. What does this one do?
This is 2 and a white for a 2/4 flying angel cleric. Whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. As long as you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2. It's an anthem if you have 7 more than your starting, if you have 27 life.
Yeah, what was it? Was it Path of Glory? It was like an enchantment that did something very similar.
Okay.
Like, I think this card is good. I think if you can, like, gain life, which, like, white is able to do, right? Like, this just can make your team huge. Let's say you went, like, Alciad into Daxos, into this, and then into Linden.
Yep. Or
right?
Heliod.
Or Heliod, yeah. Like, then you're just like, well, Linden, because then you get all the attack triggers.
Oh, yeah, and it just makes everybody
It just
massive.
makes everyone huge probably that turn. You're just like, oh, I gain a life for attacking with my Alciad. I gained a life for having a creature come into play with Valkyrie.
Daxos.
Then I gained, like, from Daxos, and I gained, like, 3 life from my attack. My team's going to be huge on here. So, like, it just feels like there are just curves where it just, like, blows your opponent away.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and it's a reason, like, a 2/4 flyer for 3 is fine.
Yeah,
or
it's
probably more than
above
fine.
great, right?
Yeah. I mean, it eats like Brazen Borrowers and stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, I think this card's fine. I think it also will probably find a home in like Historic Life Gain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That deck just gains an absurd amount of life. Oh, and there's also Speaker of the Heavens. Like, you have 2 1-mana life flickers.
Yep.
So yeah,
there's another Daxos also. It's like a Noiter Priest or something.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
In Historic or in
I think.
Anointer. Yeah, there's Anointer Priest that with the Embalm.
Oh yeah, that's not the one I was thinking of. There's one that's standard legal too. It's a 2-drop.
So yeah,
it does the same thing.
So there's like, you could just very easily like have a curve where you just like are attacking for 15 on turn like 4.
Yeah.
Like, you're just attacking for lethal.
Yep.
All right.
Dunford wanted to hear about those last two cards. So.
Gotcha. The Angels.
The Angels. Yep. All about the Angels.
Yeah, I think Righteous Valkyrie is probably way better than Resplendent Marshal. Like,
better than the Mythic.
Yeah, you see exactly how to build around it, and those decks have been like almost good enough.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yep.
So this could like push it over the top for like the last 6 months or 9 months of this standard.
Yep. Next up, MTG Aggro Player again wants to know if Alrund's Epiphany is the new blue-green ramp payoff. So Alrund's Epiphany is 5 blue for a sorcery. Create 2/1/1 bird creature tokens with flying. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Alrund's Epiphany, and it has Foretell for 4 blue.
I don't know if it's like their like payoff. I think it's fine.
I think it's all right. I mean, I'm assuming that he's like comparing this to Nexus, how the blue-green ramp decks were running Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
And this is definitely not Nexus.
Because it exiles itself. It just doesn't like let you do it over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, you don't get to loop it with itself, and it's also not instant speed.
Yeah. I mean, you do get the 2/1/1 flyers, which give you like kind of a paltry little clock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you could definitely see decks ramping into it. But, you know, extra turns are usually really good with like planeswalkers. So like a planeswalker heavy deck that like can do this, get the 1/1s to protect their planeswalkers and get 2 activations.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that there's probably better things you can be doing in a blue-green ramp deck than Alrund's.
I agree. I agree. So next up is Ascendant Spirit. So this is blue for a 1/1.
Yep. That doesn't sound great.
Snow creature spirit.
Okay.
You can pay snow to make it to turn into a 2/3.
Yep.
Permanently.
No.
Yeah. Well.
Oh yeah.
It's not like till end of turn. It just becomes a 2/3.
Right. Yeah.
Then you can play snow, and if it's a warrior, so it becomes a 2/3 warrior for snow.
Yep.
Then you can play snow, and if it is a warrior, it becomes an angel that has power, toughness 4/4, and gains flying. Or no. You put a flying counter on it.
Yeah, you put a flying counter on it. Oh, that's weird. I didn't even notice that the first time. A flying counter, so it's like throwback to Ikoria.
Yes.
Weird.
Or that recycle bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can pay snow. And if it's an angel, you can it gets a +1/+1 counter, or 2 +1/+1 counters, and gets whenever it deals damage to a combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Yep. So what do you think about Ascendant Spirit?
These kind of cards have seen play in yesteryear Magic.
Yeah. Most recently was it Warden of the First Tree in Cons?
Warden of the First Tree, and then before that it's what is I forget it. The red-white hybrid guy.
Red-white one. Yeah. Something of Destiny.
Figure of Destiny.
Figure of Destiny, yeah.
Right. They have kind of a long history, but I don't know if current Magic like supports this.
So I picked this card out. This wasn't one of the listener cards.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted to talk about it, and the reason that I think it's relevant, is not only is it level up. Like level up's good because it's kind of a mana sink. So you play this on turn 1, you do whatever else you got going around, and none of these say at sorcery speed.
Yes, you can just do it whenever.
Typically, you can only level up at sorcery speed. You can hold up interaction, whether it's counter magic or removal or whatever, and then instead of doing something like casting a cantrip, if you don't have something to interact with, you can dump it into this and grow this thing to make it bigger.
Yeah.
Also, what I thought was interesting at this guy is because he's snow. And there are certainly some snow payoffs in this set that I think may be worth building around. And this guy might be a pretty good enabler for that as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this card kind of screams to me like a mono blue tempo kind of deck, like
I mean, it could
snow
be.
tempo, where like you play this on one, and then you're holding up like your counter spell or your bounce spell or whatever interaction, and if you don't need to use it, you make it a 2/3.
Yeah.
And then the next turn, the same kind of thing. You're holding up a counter spell, and if you need to use it, fine. And if you don't, you have a place to put your mana.
Mm-hmm. Like, because you can activate it at instant speed, you kind of get to play a little mini game with your opponent too, with like threat of activation.
Yeah.
So you get to swing in, and then, if they're gonna, block it or whatever, you can level it up real quick and, either make it survive combat or trade. If they don't, maybe you just let it get in there for one, and you do something else with the rest of your turn.
You can also double activate. So let's say you play this and you have 4 snow mana up, and your opponent, and you go to level it up, and your opponent tries to stomp it in response.
Yep,
you can level it up
again.
again. It'll become a 2/3. It'll take 2 damage, and then the second activation just doesn't do anything.
Well, I mean, it resolves. It makes it a 2/3.
It makes it no, it doesn't, because it's not a.
Oh, because it's already a warrior. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's already a warrior. Well, no, I guess it doesn't have the if it's a warrior text. So yeah, it would just make it a 2/3 again. It would be a 2/3 that became a 2/3.
So I know there's some cards that play around with creature types in this set. I don't know if it's viable or not, but if you make this thing an angel, you can skip the first 2 level ups, right? Although I guess you wouldn't get the base power and toughness bump, so it'd only be a 3/3.
Yeah, it'd be a 3/3, and it wouldn't get the flying counter.
True.
Oh, it's gonna be awkward. Like if we ever played this card in paper, right? It's gonna have a flying counter, plus it's going to have +1/+1 counters.
Yeah.
Also, I'm pretty sure.
Punch tokens.
Yes. Also, I'm pretty sure that if you activate the last ability more than once, it gets multiple iterations of when this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Oh my god, it definitely does, and it gets extra counters.
Yeah, so like you could just make it an 8/8 that draws 2 cards whenever it hits.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so you can just keep hitting the 4 snow button to make it bigger.
Whew, that's pretty good.
This also plays with our favorite card in the set, Jorn.
It does.
Right? Like, you make it a 2/3, you play your Jorn, and then the next turn you're like, pump it, attack, and then you get to use your mana again.
Yeah.
To, like, pump it again. Because, like, you could, like, on my first
potentially make it big.
Yeah, on my first main phase, I'll pay 3 and make it a 4/4. I'll attack, untap my lands, pay 4, make it big.
Yeah.
So it has that going forward as well, that it plays well with Jorn, and it would untap. Jorn would untap it.
Yeah.
So you'd have like this 6/6 that like is going to draw you a card and be back on blocks.
Yeah. It also plays with a couple other cards that I think are kind of sleepers for the snow mechanic that we're going to talk about here in the set coming up.
Okay.
But moving on, we have a card that we touched on a second ago, right? We talked about it when we were talking about the Foretell stuff.
Mm-hmm. Behold the Multiverse.
Yep.
So 3 in a blue. Instant. Scry 2, draw 2 cards, and then Foretell for 1 in a blue. So we played Glimmer of Genius, even in decks that didn't care about energy.
Yeah, like Scry 2, draw 2 was fine enough.
Yeah, like this is a standard playable card.
Yep. And
Foretell letting you squeeze it in on, odd turns. Or if you don't have interaction to hold up on 2, you're just like, fine, Foretell it, go.
Yeah, I was actually thinking this is probably closer to, was it Hieroglyphic Illumination?
Yeah, maybe.
Than Glimmer. Because like you don't get to cash this in for a card right away, but you kind of get to do the same thing where if you don't have the mana to cast it, you can tuck it away for later instead of just cashing it in for one new card.
Yeah, what's nice about this is, right, if this is in your opening hand and you have 2 lands, like you shouldn't miss your 3rd land drop.
Right.
Because you can like foretell it on 2, cast
Yeah.
it on 3, and you get 4 looks at your third land.
Yeah, up to 4, yeah.
Yeah, up to 4. So, if it's not land, bottom, draw 2, like you should hit your land at that point.
Yep. So this card's not super exciting, but I think it is a role player in like those blue-white foretell decks that we were talking about, or some sort of control going forward.
Yeah, like any kind of control deck, I think this fits in there.
Yeah, it's just kind of a role player, so I figured we'd mention it.
Yeah.
After that, we have Bind the Monster. It's a single blue mana, enchantment aura. It's an enchant creature. When Bind the Monster enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. It deals damage to you equal to its power, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step.
The blue swords to plowshares, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Blue has no color power restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, this is just straight up removal for 1 mana.
Yeah.
I don't know that it sees a ton of standard play. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it did. Like you were talking about some sort of blue tempo deck with Ascendant Spirit. Like this would certainly fall into that.
Oh, absolutely. Like this, I feel like with the banning of, was it Fall from Favor? And Pauper, like this is the best blue removal spell now.
Probably.
So like in Pauper, like I see this probably just fitting right in as a card that gets played.
Yep.
But like in any kind of like I said, tempo deck, like where you just get to like kill their 3-drop. And then get to hold up more interaction. Like, this seems great.
Yep. The first thing that jumped to my mind when I saw this card was Death Shadow.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like, exactly the thing that Death Shadow wants to be doing. It wants to play really cheap interaction, and it wants to drain its life total. And we also have, admittedly, it's a bad Death Shadow, but we have a Death Shadow in Standard right now. So, maybe there's a deck there.
Yeah, but no, this card is very good. Like, puzzling why they printed it so good.
Yeah,
because like it doesn't read like a blue card. Like the fact that it deals damage to you.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah. Frost Augur. It's scrying sheets.
It is just scrying sheets on a 1/1.
So what does he do?
He's a single blue mana for a 1/2. Oh, I'm sorry. He's a 1/2, not a 1. Single blue mana for a 1/2. He's a snow creature, human wizard. And you can pay a snow mana and tap it. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a snow card, you can reveal it and put it in your hand. So this finds all of your snow lands. It finds Ascendant Spirit. It finds Jorn. There's some other cards that are coming up that we're going to talk about that it finds. It's basically, if you build your deck correctly, it's 1 mana draw card.
It's slow for constructed, but it is a really powerful effect. So I don't know if it'll see constructed play, but
I mean, I think it depends how strong snow ends up being.
This is true. Like, yeah, if you play 4 of these and you just get to like draw an extra card every turn for 1 mana, like then that's great.
Not only that, like there's a bunch of stuff that cares about having like a number of snow permanents.
Yeah.
So like at some point, if your payoffs are good enough, you just need snow permanents. And Jorn untaps this.
You get to do it twice a turn?
Yeah, you just get to do it twice a turn. It untaps the mana and this.
Jorn seems busted. We just keep going back to that. But
Jorn seems pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the first deck I'm going to brew up.
All right. So next is Glimpse the Cosmos. 1 in the blue for basically Anticipate, but it's sorcery speed. So look at the top 3, put a card in your hand, and the others on the bottom.
Yep.
And where this gets interesting is if you have a giant, you can cast it from your graveyard for a blue.
A single blue mana.
And then you have to exile it.
Yeah. So you get to Anticipate twice for a total of 3 mana.
Yeah. This card is like solely dependent on, are there enough giants? Right? Or enough good giants.
I know we're living in different times now, but Anticipate has certainly seen play.
It has.
Now, I know this is slow Anticipate, but Anticipate has certainly seen play. And you have like Bone Crusher Giant.
I mean, that is like the best giant. Like, I don't know, like, what is the Tectonic whatever, the 3/4 that like you either look at the top two or you deal 3 to your opponent when it attacks.
Yeah.
Like that might be the next best giant.
Maybe.
Like it's really like anticipate by itself is probably not good enough.
Yeah.
And the additional giant's clause makes this good enough, but there have to be enough good giants around it.
I don't even know that there have to be, though. Like, if you just play, like, Bone Crusher Giant is certainly not an embarrassing card.
No.
And this can just hang out in your graveyard until you find a Bone Crusher Giant. Or this
That's
can
fair.
find a Bone Crusher Giant.
That's
It's
fair.
not like you have to do it all in one turn.
Yeah, that's fair. It can just sit there until you play your Bone Crusher.
Yeah, like, if you play a Bone Crusher on, like, turn 6 or something, and then look at the top, 6 cards of your library and pick 2, like, that seems pretty good. Like, if you just got 2 of these hanging out in your graveyard.
Yeah. All right. So this next one is on here because Sam Black talked about it. So what is this one?
This is Graven Lore. It's 3 blue for a snow instant. Scry X, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast this spell, then draw 3 cards.
So I think I described it when you first brought it up as like it's a bad dig through time.
It is a bad dig through time. But,
Right.
like, dig through time's busted, so
Yeah,
is
like
bad dig through time good?
the 5 mana draw 3s, we've seen a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they've not seen a ton of play. Like there was a while when the what was that mechanic that was an instant but you had to cast it on your turn to get some extra effect?
Adamant?
Adamant. Right? The Adamant draw 3 got played like at sorcery speed so you could scry 3 and then draw 3.
Yep.
Right? And it like felt awful as like the not control player.
Right.
Having them do that. The fact that this is just this effect all the time, and it's basically just asking you to like play some snowlands.
Yeah, like
And,
there's
like,
no downside here.
This could be the glue that would hold together any kind of like traditional draw go blue-white control deck.
Oh yeah.
Right? Where you're 2 colors and you're playing like, 10 basic lands.
Mm.
You're playing your 4 temples, your 4 flip lands, and Fabled Passage, and then Snowlands.
Yeah, bunch of snowlands.
Yeah, and then you cast this, and you scry 5, draw 3.
Whew.
Like, if you don't win the game from that...
Yeah, you made mistakes.
You made mistakes. Like, your deck's bad.
Yeah.
Right? You're just like, oh, I get to pick the best 3 cards out of my top 5, or like I want 2 of these and spin the wheel on a random.
Right.
Right.
Or these are 5 lands and get 3 fresh cards.
Yeah. Like, and at instant speed where you can just like hold up interaction until, and then just play this whenever. Like, oh, you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, think
you
about.
Bricked, okay, I'm going to refill.
Yeah. Think about how punishing Chemist's Insight was in those. In the blue-white control games where you were you had to play a card on 4 to make them answer it so they couldn't Chemist's Insight.
Yeah.
Right? Those control games were all about just, are they going to cast Chemist's Insight? And this just seems like it's so much more. I know it's 1 more mana, but it's just so much more in terms of like
what it does.
Yeah. Where, you can't just not do something on 5.
Right.
Like, you have to do something. Or they just, bury you on turn 5.
Yeah, I mean, if they resolve this and scry 4, you're done.
Yeah, she's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'll go away now.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's good. And if you're playing a lot of snowlands, it's just, on some level, it's just like Demonic Tutor. Okay, what card do I want?
It's pretty close to.
Yeah, let's go find it. So, all right.
Yeah, I tend to perk my ears up when Sam Black's, mentions a card in particular that, especially one that nobody else is talking about.
Yeah,
it gets my attention.
Yeah, this could just be, like I said, what holds together a control deck.
Yeah.
This next card is either a complete and total meme, or it's good.
Is that why Dunford wants to hear about this?
Maybe. I don't know where he falls on the meme scale, but Mystic Reflection?
Yeah. This is a 1 and a blue for an instant. It has Foretell for a single blue mana. And it says, choose target non-legendary creature. The next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature.
So this card has like 2 like play patterns.
Yeah.
Right? You like make your opponent's planeswalker or creature that's coming in bad.
Yep.
Because it, you have it copy something.
You make their Uro one of your human tokens from your Lovestruck Beast.
Or you make your their Ugin a human token.
Yeah.
And this also then has the other play pattern of you play a Raise the Alarm or something that makes multiple tokens.
Yeah.
And you have those tokens come in as something good.
Right.
So you're like, oh cool, I'll target my whatever, and then I'll play Forbidden Friendship, and I'll get 2 of those.
Mm-hmm.
It can do multiple creatures because those creatures are coming into play at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
So, also this like really hoses like a Genesis Ultimatum.
Oh yeah.
They cast Genesis Ultimatum, then you cast this, and they get to draw the cards, but they can't put any of them into play. Or they just become whatever you like, copied. So like a 7 mana draw 5 is still really good, but not nearly as good as a 7 mana draw 5, put them in the battlefield.
Right.
So I don't know, like it could do some interesting, fun things.
I wouldn't be surprised to at least like see this pop up in sideboards.
Yeah. You're playing against like the Ugin ramp deck. Okay, cool. You got the 8 mana? Have 2/2. Good talk.
Yep.
All right. This next card is just a wall of like semi-random text. I don't know.
Honestly, like I'm gonna be like completely honest here. This is my hot take, and I'm probably gonna catch some flack for it. But when I looked at this card, I'd never even bothered reading it because it just seemed like something that would never be good.
Okay, so we're talking about, what is this? Orvar, the Allform.
Yeah.
3 and a blue for a 3/3. Legendary creature, shapeshifter.
Yep. It has Changeling, so it's all creature types. And it says whenever you, and I'm reading this for the first time right now.
Okay.
Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. When a spell or an ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent.
There you go. First impressions.
So, I don't know what this card does. What's it do? Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets...
It's like...
It can't be good because I can't figure it out,
It's
right?
like Super Feather, right? So you play this, and then you cast... what's it called? Defiant Strike on one of your creatures. When you target that creature, you make a copy of that creature. So you play your 10th Street Legionnaire or whatever, and you're like, and you have this out, and you're like, Defiant Strike, and
you get another one.
You get another one. So anytime you cast a spell, you're casting Clone on that permanent.
Huh.
May I interest you in a Cleansing Wildfire?
Yeah.
Because you copy the land, then you destroy it, and you get another land. So this plus Cleansing Wildfire is ramp spells.
It's any permanent, not just creatures.
Yeah, any permanent. Now, like, the legendary rule still applies, right? So it's not like you can just, like, be like, I'll tap my Ugin and get, like, 2 Ugins.
This is such a weird card.
Yeah. Like, and then the weird discard text, like...
Yeah, that seems super random.
Your opponent pluses their Lily, you discard this, and you copy a Lily.
Yeah.
And now you have a Lily, and you plus your Lily.
It's a Lily off.
Yeah, the weird obstinate Bailoff text, like, I don't know. It seems like you could do something fun with it. It also seems like it can't do anything in constructed.
Yeah. It seems like a meme.
Yeah, and the fact that, like...
I don't think that you can play it, like, seriously.
Yeah, like the fact that...
You're going to have fun and do the thing, but...
like feather worked because you could like protect it and get its effect.
Yeah.
This like if you target this, you don't get a copy. So you're like, I'm gonna protect this, and you don't get anything for it.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that it would like be a fun commander.
Mm-hmm.
Like you play it and then you target it and you get a copy of. Well, you play it and then you target something else and you get a copy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like you can't really get like ahead on mana because you had to like spend the mana in the first place to cast the thing the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It seems really weird.
All right, now we're on to black.
Now we're on to black. First up in black, we have Rise of the Dreadmarn. This is 2 and a black for an instant. It foretells for a single black mana and says create X 2/2 black zombie berserker creature tokens where X is the number of non-token creatures that died this turn. Like this card seems like Wrath Insurance, right?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Do you think it exists just because we have Doomscar?
Maybe. Imagine how busted this would be with Cat Oven.
Well, I mean, that's where I was going to go next. Is this in like an aristocrat style deck?
Yeah, where you just sack a bunch of stuff, play this, get a bunch more stuff to sack.
Yeah, sack a bunch more stuff.
Yeah, no. I think its main purpose is like Wrath Insurance, where you're like a black aggressive deck and you go like 1, 2, 3, and then on turn 4 you can hold this up if they cast Shatter the Sky or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets you creatures for your creatures and for their creatures if they died.
Right.
So, like, it lets you rebuild quickly.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't think you want to, like, foretell this on 2 if you're, like, a black aggressive deck, because that's way better for you to, like, actually, you know...
Right. Play a 2-drop.
Play a 2-drop, yeah.
Yeah. What about... Do you remember that deck that you were playing a little bit in Pioneer? That white-black zombies rally deck?
Oh, yeah.
This is pretty sweet for that, though, right?
Yeah, like, you just sack all your stuff and get a bunch of more zombies?
Well, you sack all your stuff, rally it back, sack it all, pay a single black mana, and then you get, you know, some giant zombie army that you get to sack.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't go away.
Right.
Good times.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I think it's something that'll do, like in a specific deck, it'll do something powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a lot of, like, moving parts to get that powerful thing. Yeah. I think the simplest thing is, like, you know, turn 4, foretell it, and just look at your opponent and go, like, all right, cool, Wrath my board. I'm going to put 6 more power out here.
Right.
Your move.
Yep.
That's another thing, though. If you have this in your deck, and then you have, like, another foretell card.
Yeah.
Right? Now, like, if you foretell the other card, they have to think it's this, and they're like, do I want a Wrath? What if he has that card? Oh, no. Maybe I have to wait a turn till I have a counterspell or something.
Yeah, see, those mind games are a lot more fun in person, though, than on Arena.
Very true. Very, very true. What is this next guy?
This is Varagoth Bloodsky Sire. He's 2 and a black for a 2/3 demon rogue, legendary. He has Death Touch, and he boasts for 1 and a black. So I think this is the first boast card that we've talked about today.
Mm-hmm.
Boast, you can only activate once per turn, and only if the creature has attacked. So his boast ability is target player searches their library for a card, shuffles their library, and puts that card on top of it. So it's a Vampiric Tutor.
Yes, on a 2/3 body.
On a 2/3 Death Toucher. How relevant is Vampiric Tutor right now in Standard?
I don't know. Like, I think it would be good, but, like, on some level, that Vampiric Tutor the first one costs 5 mana.
Yeah.
And that's not good enough. Right, like, you're not going to play, like, a 2/3 Death Touch in Standard.
Right.
And, like, I think this card only starts to really pay for itself if you get the second activation. And how many times is that going to happen?
Oh, probably not. I mean, I don't think your opponent could just let you connect.
No, they can't just, like, go no blocks.
But see, like, Boast doesn't have to deal combat damage either. So you could...
Right, like, you could attack and do it, But like, what are you getting that like really changes the game that much?
Another one?
Just string them together.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Well, I mean, then like, is that what you want to draw? Like, I guess you get to pick what you draw the next turn.
Yeah,
and it depends on the board, but I don't know. It seems slow and like not that impactful. Like if it went in your hand, if it was Demonic Tutor, then we're cooking with gas.
I mean, it's a rogue. Does it fit into the rogues deck?
I don't know. Like the ones that have Loris, no, because like it just makes them like not play Loris.
Yeah.
So is this like better than like Loris?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Next up.
I just thought it was an interesting talking point. It's not an ability that we see that often.
I think it is. It's just like those kind of cards don't get to get played.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're probably right. Yep.
All right. Next up. Tundra Fumarole. We talked about this last week. 1 red for a snow sorcery. Deal 4 damage to target creature or player. And you get a colorless mana for each snow mana paid to cast this spell.
Creature or planeswalker.
Creature or planeswalker. I'm sorry. Creature or planeswalker.
Yeah.
And you get you get a colorless mana for each snow used to cast Tundra Fumarole. So this can be like a free spell, but it kind of filters your colored mana into colorless mana.
Right.
So you have to have something to do with that. But otherwise, it's just free.
Free removal spell. It's
probably good. We already talked about how it can, with Jorn and like a little bit of help, like you can turn 4 an Ugin with this, because you get to float that 3 colorless mana through phases.
Right.
If you set up your deck to be able to use that colorless mana, it just ends up being free. Like even a turn, like it sounds like innocuous, of like Tundra Fumarole your thing, play Solemn Simulacrum.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Like that's a great turn. Right, that's like all a big red deck wants to do, because then you're like, cool, I get to cast my Goldspan Dragon next turn.
Yep.
100% I'm Goldspan Dragoning you.
Yeah, seems awesome.
Yeah, so like something like that where you get to use that mana effectively, I think makes this card really good.
Yep. No, I think you're 100% right. I didn't even think about this with Solemn Simulacrum. It sounds like an awesome use.
Or even like, what's it called? Mazemind Tome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
like, you get to like tome and activate if you have 4 mana. Great.
Awesome.
Like just everything a big red deck wants to do.
Yep.
All right. Next up. The best prey upon ever?
Yeah, Blizzard Brawl. It's a single green mana for a snow sorcery. Oh, that's another thing that's kind of important, and why I included that Frost Augur in our discussion here is that both, like the Tundra Fumarole and the Blizzard Brawl, are both snow. So he can find like things that aren't just creatures or lands, because they have these snow spells. But anyway, Blizzard Brawl is a single green for a snow sorcery. Choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If you control 3 or more snow permanents, the creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains indestructible till end of turn. Then those creatures fight each other.
Best prey upon ever.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If the mono green food deck survives like this standard, right? If that is a deck that gets played in standard next season, right after, this is 100% a 4 of in that deck.
Oh yeah.
And they just take out all their forests and they put in snow forests.
Yep.
And then they just like wreck people with
and go.
Yeah, just like, okay, cool, eat your thing. Oh, cool, Redain. Cool 2/3 snow hate card. I'll play my land tapped and I will eat it with my 2-drop. And then I will hit you for 4.
Yep.
Your move. Cool turn 3, bro.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, so yeah, this card is like really pushed and is going to be something that we'll see play in those green decks.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it saw play not in just the green decks also. Like whatever this snow deck is, whether it turns out to be, Sultai, Jorn, or whatever. Like, I mean, this is just a powerful removal spell. It doesn't even matter that it's a sorcery. It's 1 mana, and it gives your thing indestructible, so you can crash in.
I mean, our boy Jorn needs to get through some combats.
He does, yeah.
Right, so you're like,
seems like a great
Jorn,
way to do it.
Eat your 3-drop. He's indestructible. Play a 3-drop. Attack, untap my stuff, play a 4-drop.
Ooh, gives me chills, buddy.
Yeah, like, yo, I just spent 8 mana on my turn 4. Good tuck.
Yeah.
What did you do on your turn 4? You played 4 mana worth of stuff? Aw, sorry.
Aww.
Sorry. Now I'm going to cast this, like, Graven lore on my next turn to fill my hand back up and then get in with my boy Jorn again.
Yep.
All right. Next up is a card that feels misplaced.
Yeah, it's really weird, and it's probably not good, but like there's a couple weird things going on here I just wanted to touch on. This is Finn the Fang Bearer. It's 1 and a green for a 1/3 legendary human warrior. It has Death Touch, and it says whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So it's not infect. It's just poison, like way old school poison, like Marsh Viper poison.
Yes.
But like we've had some really strange Death Touch cards lately. Like what was that snake from Core 21? The Hooded Death Fang or whatever?
That whenever something attacked with Death Touch, like they lost a life and you gained a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what's up with all these really weird Death Touch cards? So,
strangely enough, I've heard people talking about, like, oh, this is, like, a cool Death Touch commander. Like, I apparently don't understand commander at all, because it just seems like everything's just like, oh, well, if you want to play, like, your all Death Touch deck, this is your commander. Oh, if you want to play your all, like, Smurfs deck, this is your commander. Oh, if you want to play your all, like, Double Strike deck, this is your commander. I'm like, dear God. Like, everyone just wants, like, a commander for every mechanic.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you want to play your all flanking deck, may I introduce you to this guy from Visions? It's like, why?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
this didn't strike me as a Death Touch commander, although I guess there's no reason it couldn't be. But.
Yeah, I mean, like a green-black, like, Death Touchy deck.
Yeah.
Like, I think the biggest problem is, like, you're on the infect plan and then this guy dies.
You're no longer on the infect plan.
You're no longer on the infect plan. You're like, the creatures still deal the damage and give the counters, right? When a creature you control, so it would deal the damage plus.
Yeah, it doesn't replace it like infect.
Yeah, so you could still be on the normal damage plan.
I guess.
Like, I don't know, like slap an Embercleave on this guy, give him double strike.
Get 4 poison counters?
Yeah, get in there.
I don't know, it seems strange.
It does.
It was just weird. It just kind of struck me as weird that we're getting all these really, like, oddball Death Touch payoffs. Where, like, that's not a thing that typically happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah, again, I don't know, like, you know, in the, like, Magic Online survey, if a bunch of people were like, I want to play Death Touch Tribal. And they were like, screw it, sure. Here you go.
Sure.
Here you go.
Do you, buddy.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
I think
here's an uncommon from Kaldheim.
I think the most interesting thing is that this guy plus Vorinclex is just kind of like, they're Phyrexian Surround.
Yeah.
Right? Like this kind of feels like it is like I guess he has Coma's Fang, so Coma should really be like giving infect tokens.
Death Touch.
Or
yeah, I don't know.
But like it feels like it's very much like Phyrexian stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, granted,
maybe when we get back to Phyrexia, Death Touch will have replaced Infect, and we get more stuff like this.
Or we get Venomous.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a mechanic that's on literally one card. Venomous Liver. Thank you, Future Sight. Yeah, the fixed Infect. All right. Next card is In Search of Greatness. We talked about this at great length before. As mana doubler or mana enhancer.
Yeah, there was like one thing that I don't think we touched on that I don't know if it's relevant or the right way to build it or whatever, but this counts any permanent. So, like, you can always put a 1-drop into play
You can.
because you're going to have a land.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many 1-drops do you have to put into play before, like, this has paid for itself? Like, 2 and it's paid for the cost of the card, but how many beyond 2 is worth a card?
Well, I think that, like, if you go, like, this into, like, 1-drop, 3-drop, right? Then you put in a 4-drop, then I think it's paid for itself.
Yeah.
Right, but, like, I don't know how many, like, 1-drops you kind of have to, like, throw into the meat grinder where you're like, 1-drop, attack you.
Well, I mean, think about elves, though. Like, you're running, I don't know, at least 12 1-drops, and you want to flood the battlefield with them.
But you can only put in, like, 1-drop once. Then you have to put in a 2-drop.
Yeah.
You have to go up the ladder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that makes it kind of weird.
Yeah, so it's not like you can just have a
you
deck.
You could go, Llanowar Elf, Elvish Clan Caller, Elvish Archdruid.
Yeah.
Beast
like,
Whisperer.
if you went, like, Elf, like, Llanowar Elf into this, and then your turn 3 is Elvish Clan Caller, Heritage Druid, not Heritage Druid, whatever the guy is, the 3-drop lord.
Yeah,
right?
Elvish Archdruid.
Yeah, but is that better than just having played Clan Caller on 2?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, again, I think this is a card that, like, can do powerful things if, like, I think the draw, and if the draw lines up and there's a deck built around it.
Yeah.
All right. Next card, Snakeskin Veil.
Mm-hmm.
Green, instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn.
So this is a strictly better Ranger's Guile.
Yes.
Because the counter sticks around. So that's good.
I also think that these kind of cards just get played.
Yeah.
This also strikes me as, like, again, if a green food deck is still a deck.
Yeah.
Right, this is like a sideboard card in that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, the green-white, like, enchantment deck.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it needed another way to protect a successive champion.
Yeah.
It has that.
You could play this along with that weird octopus thing we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
or
like, protect my champion, get another champion.
Yep. One more thing that I saw rumblings of, but didn't, like, I never stuck around to see it fleshed out, was people were talking about this alongside the dragon, the Goldspan dragon.
Yep.
Because if we go to kill it, you get a treasure, and then when you target it with this to protect it, you get another treasure.
Yes.
So you end up, like, way ahead.
Yeah, like, if you just don't want the Goldspan dragon to die, this is a good way to just keep it around.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess we don't have God's Willing anymore. That's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is probably the best way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I definitely think that, like, Goldspan and then use this for protection is, like, a reasonable thing.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's also stuff with counter synergies. We came from Ikoria, so there's plenty of stuff with counter synergies. And, like we mentioned earlier, we still have the Conclave Mentor, I think, that doubles counters.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to do with it. Or, like, in, like, historic, like, Widening Constrictor.
Yep. Yeah,
like,
that too.
Yeah, like
this is great in that deck.
You're like, Widening Constrictor, play this. Like, your turn 3 is Constrictor this.
Yeah.
If they try to kill your Constrictor, you just make it huge.
Right.
And then you go from there. You're just like, oh, I made a 4/5. Cool.
Yeah, we'll figure it out after that.
Yeah. I counted your removal spell and I have a 4/5. Good luck.
Yep, seems good.
All right. Now to some gold cards.
Yep.
And this first one I asked for. And it's Battle of Frost and Fire. A nod to George R.R. Martin. So 3 red, blue for a saga. And chapter 1 is when it enters the battlefield, you deal 4 damage to each non-giant creature in each planeswalker. So
It's pretty good.
As long as there's not a bunch of giants running around, right? This is like 5 mana, like kind of sweep up the board in blue-red.
Is it Storm's Wrath?
Storm's Wrath, yeah. 1 more mana for Storm's Wrath, but it has the benefit of being a permanent, so that lets the Sky Doodle blink it.
It does.
Then you get to Scry 3, which is a whole lot of Scries.
Yeah, Scry 3 is like, I mean, it's approaching a whole card.
Yeah. And then the next one is the last chapter is whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, this turn, draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So my first thought is like, I just keep thinking about like Niv to Light in in Pioneer.
Yeah.
And they were playing some like pretty like sketchy Wraths.
Just because they were 2 colors?
A lot of times they're just playing like, what's the 5 mana, like, deal a bunch of damage to all non-bolus planeswalkers?
Oh, Hour Devastation?
Hour Devastation, like, they're playing that, which you can't hit off of Niv.
Right.
Like, this gives you a thing to get with your Bring to Light, plus a thing that you can hit off of Niv. Yeah. It doesn't kill Niv. Right? If this is out and the 3rd chapter goes off, casting Niv triggers it.
Yeah.
Casting Bring to Light triggers it.
Yep.
Right? So,
yeah, seems pretty sweet.
Yeah, so like it just seems like it fits well into like that deck. And I think in any kind of like Yorion deck, you know, maybe we'll have Jeskai Battle Yorion something. As our new Jeskai Yorion deck.
Yeah,
right?
Who knows?
Yeah, but this card seems like it has a good home, and just being able to like blink it with Yorion, and just like, your opponent, if you have a Yorion, you're like, play this, and they can't play a creature the next turn that dies to it, because you're just like, okay, cool, Yorion, blink it again, kill your thing.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh my god, I just never get to go anywhere. Because then
spinning wheels.
Yeah, you're just like, you can't play anything that has less than 5 toughness because I'm just gonna I'm gonna blink this over and over. Right,
and then like the Scry sets up your CMC 5 or greater too. It finds your Niv or whatever.
Yeah, it finds whatever you need.
Yeah, or your Yorion, I guess.
Yeah. All right, next one.
Yeah, this is the Serpent that you were just talking about. It's a Coma Cosmos Serpent, 3 green blue for a legendary Serpent. It's a 6/6. This spell can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. And then you can sacrifice another serpent, and you get to choose one. There's 2 different abilities. The first is tap target permanent. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. And the second is Coma Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible till end of turn. Normally, I wouldn't have put a card like this on our list or in our episode, because this is probably just meant for Commander. But we had a question earlier about a payoff for some sort of blue-green ramp deck, and I believe this is a better payoff than that card.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you get a 3/3 as soon as you go to your opponent's upkeep,
right,
is big.
Yep.
Also, it says permanent, right? So you can sack your Coma's Coil to turn off other Planeswalker for a turn.
Yeah, you can turn off an Ugin or whatever, or a land.
Yeah, so like that's a big deal.
Yep.
And the fact that it can't be countered, you just know it's going to resolve.
Yeah, as long as this lasts until like your opponent's upkeep, like you're going to at the very least be able to protect it.
Yeah.
And then from there, build an army, turn off their stuff, whatever you need to do. And like 6/6 is big.
It is big.
Yeah. It going rumble.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, this might just be a commander card, and it's like, oh, how many just might be a commander cards like ruined formats?
Well, I don't think this has potential for ruining a format. But
I agree.
I could definitely see it as some sort of ramp payoff for sure.
Yeah,
it's hard to kill.
100%. Like I agree. Like it's
definitely
something that like you could ramp into and not be embarrassed.
I mean, you could even play this like as your your finisher for some sort of like Bant control ramp deck.
Yeah.
I think you'd be fine.
All right. Next one. This is up my wheelhouse. It does.
Oh, I'm super excited. I am super excited about this card. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
All right.
And I haven't heard anyone else talk about this either. So
yeah, Narfi, Betrayer King, 3 blue-black for a 4/3. Legendary snow creature zombie wizard.
Ooh, that's a mouthful.
At uncommon. So think all this text I'm going to read you is at uncommon.
Yep.
Other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1.
Okay.
Snow, snow, snow. Return Narfi, Betrayer King, from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Excellent. I'm in.
May I introduce you to Prized Amalgam?
Uh-huh.
And may I also... I'd have to introduce James, but his boy, Bomat Courier.
100%.
Or just like general self-mill shenanigans.
Yep.
Like, usually having a mana cost is not the best for these, but things like Haunted Dead and Citrus Supplier, like they let you discard cards, which was nice for the graveyard synergies.
I mean, sometimes you just ran out of cards to discard, though.
But like the fact that they had like an activated ability to get them back was fine, right? Like because they usually brought with them a bunch of prized amalgams.
Yep.
And like this makes all your prized amalgams bigger.
Oh yeah.
So you're like
snow stuff too. Like there's a ton of relevant snow stuff. Like our boy Jorn.
Yeah.
And the 1-drop blue guy Ascendant Spirit.
Yeah.
And the other blue guy, the Frost Augur.
Yeah, like there's a lot that he can do. Like this is a lot of text on an uncommon.
Yeah, I definitely thought this card was a rare.
Yeah.
I did not think it was an uncommon.
Yeah.
Also, like the activation is instant speed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he enters tap, so he's not going to be a blocker, but you can like bring him back in the middle of combat to pump your dudes, or hold up interaction, and then if you don't need to interact, you bring this guy back on the end step.
Yeah, like I don't know if this is like a very sticky kind of threat, right? Like in a simpler time, like you can almost see this being like a control finisher, where there's like two, you play like 2.
Yeah, like that's a whole nother argument though, because like you don't even need to be black or blue to play this. Like you could be mono green self-mill and run this thing and be perfectly happy.
Yes, and just be like, cool, I have my guy.
Yeah.
All right. How do you feel about 2-mana draw 2s?
I'm fine with 2-mana draw 2s.
All right, cool. The 3 Seasons. It's a very nice hotel.
It's one less season than 4 seasons. I don't know how nice it is. Is this next to the landscape place?
The landscaping. Maybe that was the name of the adult bookstore. The 3 Seasons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the 3 seasons.
So it's green blue for a saga. Mm-hmm. Chapter 1, mill 3 cards.
Ooh, you could mill a Narfi with it.
You could mill a Narfi with it.
Yeah.
Chapter 2, return up to 2 target snow permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand.
Ooh, so this gets a Jorn.
And it gets a land.
It gets a land. It gets Ascendant Spirit.
It gets 2 lands. Like,
it gets 2 lands.
Like, if your deck is a pile of snow things, this is just 2-mana, draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
And then...
I mean, it's a little bit better than draw 2 cards because there's some portion of a scry in there, too.
Yeah, because, like, you get to pick what cards you want. And then you have... The last chapter is kind of awkward. It's choose 3 cards in each graveyard. Their controllers shuffle those cards into their libraries.
Yeah, so I mean, it's only kind of awkward because you're like kind of emptying your graveyard with the second chapter, or not emptying it, but you're cherry picking it. But then the third chapter gets to shuffle back your opponent's Uro, which is good.
That's what I was gonna say. It gets an Uro. It gets, like, if they're doing graveyard shenanigans, like if like you get to like kind of mess up what they're doing with their graveyard.
Yeah. See, this is also like right on time too, because it comes down on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you bring 2 things back, and then on turn 4, like you get to tuck the Uro back in.
Yeah, like I was looking at this card as like a large percentage of like Seder Wayfinder, right?
Oh yeah, it's a less mill but more cards.
Yeah, like you lose the 1/1 body,
Yeah.
but you just get to, you like Seder Wayfinder, like 90% of the time, all you wanted it to do was like hit your next land drop and throw some cards in your graveyard.
Right.
And this is going to like help you hit your next land drop and
Yeah.
throw some cards in your graveyard. Now it's going to take some cards out, but like
Yeah.
let's say you're playing like a graveyard combo-y kind of deck,
Hmm.
and you put the like you put your card that returns your creatures from your graveyard in
Hmm.
your graveyard. This lets you shuffle those back in,
Yeah.
so it's not all like downside.
Yeah.
But like
And like if all you care about is things in your graveyard, the Seder Wayfinder you have to trade off, which sometimes isn't that easy. Whereas this goes to the graveyard by itself. And
yeah,
it's an enchantment too for like, I mean, I don't know what kind of delirium things you're doing, but enchantments can be harder to get in the graveyard than creatures can.
yeah. So like it does a lot of little things, but like just that like if it is like 2 mana, draw 2 cards 80% of the time,
Yeah.
like that card's really good. Like think about how good like Chart a Course was, and you had to like attack to set that up.
Yeah.
And this is like draw 2 cards, or draw like basically 2 of your best 3 cards if your whole deck is snow,
Right.
right? Which is pretty good. Like that's a 4 mana effect. Like that's Dark
Mhm.
Bargain.
Yeah.
And this is just 2 less mana.
Right.
So yeah, I think that card is really strong if you play a whole bunch of
Hmm.
snow stuff.
Yeah. And it puts your Narfi in the yard.
Yeah, so you can
Yep.
bring him back,
Yep.
because you can bring your
And
Narfi back in response to the
the
trigger.
Yep.
So like you don't have to worry about shuffling your Narfi. You can just be like, boom, Narfi, you're home, boy.
Yep. Here he is.
All right, we have some gods.
We do. These were listener requests. Dunford wants to hear about both of these next two.
Okay.
The first is Tergrid, God of Fright, 3 black for a 4/5 legendary god. It has Menace, and whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And then he's a double-face card because he's a god. For 3 and a black, it's Tergrid's Lantern. It's a legendary artifact with tap. Target player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. And you can pay 3 and a black to untap Tergrid's Lantern.
So the backside, from what I understand, is a commander win con if you make infinite mana,
Yep.
because like it gets to untap itself. So you're just like, cool.
Yeah, eventually they're going to run out of things to discard or
Yeah.
sacrifice.
You're like, I make 1,000,000 mana and then I just kill the whole table.
Right.
I think the front side's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to like there's enough stuff that like makes you like makes like players sacrifice stuff.
Yeah. Do we have a flesh bag in standard right now?
I don't think.
Yeah, I can't. We had Plague Bearer, but that's not in standard anymore.
Yeah.
And I think there was a new one that was just printed in Commander Legends.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have that. I mean, even something like a Croxa, right? Like if you play a Croxa, like and they discard something,
Mm-hmm.
right?
You
Like
get
if they discard a land, you get the land and they take 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If they discard a creature, you just get the creature.
Yeah.
Like that seems good.
Yeah. Seems cool.
I mean, being 5, like it's kind of hard because like, what's their hand gonna be?
Right.
So
Unless you have a way to fill their hand back up.
Yeah, which seems like a dangerous game to play.
Yeah. I mean, is there like a prosperity in standard?
I don't know,
Yeah, I don't know if there is either.
but I I think that the card is good, but when it comes down, like, what are you getting for it? And like, how many ways do you have to make your opponent sacrifice stuff? I guess I don't know offhand
Yeah, I'm not sure.
how many, like, because there's like, what is it? The was it the thing that was like 6 mana. Each player sacks 3 creatures, and you make 3 food.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, if you got to do that, then like you're doing it,
Hmm.
because like this will, when those things get sacked, this will still be there even if it's your only creature to see
Right.
it happen, and then you'll get them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's a thing in this set that has foretell. It's like 4 mana. Each player discards 2 creatures,
Oh,
and it foretells for 1 in the black.
yeah.
So like, you could
That
set
works
something up
well.
like that.
Hmm.
I did like someone who pointed out, like, if your opponent sacks a fabled passage, you just get a fabled passage.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what happens if you and your opponent both have a Turgid, and then you cast that both players sack 3 creatures thing? You
You
just
just like,
exchange Turgrids.
yeah, I think you just exchange, like, everyone just exchanges creatures.
Yeah. I'll take your board, you take my board.
Yeah. Oh, we have oh, what is it called? Farika's Libation
Oh yeah, sacrifice enchantment
or
or
creature?
is it enchantment or creature? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You get
actually
to
not a
pick.
bad edict. There's 2 mana, right? Or
I
is it
think
three
it's
mana?
3.
Yeah.
So it's not great. But yeah, like, I think this is interesting, but I don't know if there's enough stuff around it
Yeah.
to make it work in constructed. I think, like, as a commander card,
This might
probably
be
great.
fun in like historic brawl too, because it
Yeah.
kind of fits right into the Tiny Bones deck.
Oh, and isn't there Torment of Hailfire
Oh
in
yeah,
in
in
historic?
historic, yeah, that's oh yeah, this would torment. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, cool. Give me all
Yeah,
those.
yeah, you can take 9, or I'll take 3 of your things.
Yeah, even if it's three
Like
lands, cool. I rampant growth,
yeah,
awesome.
it's like the best agent of treachery.
Yeah, give me 3 lands.
Yeah,
Right, especially like those like black decks that play Torment of Hailfire are like just set up to make a ton of mana.
right.
So like, if instead of getting to Hailfire for 6, you Hailfire for 4, but you get to play the Torgrid first,
Yeah, that's
then like
awesome.
that's way better. Like, all on the same turn, you're like, cool. I'll generate like 16 mana. Let's go.
Hmm. Yeah,
All right. Next up is another guy we talked about this guy before.
we did. We kind of went into depth about this guy also, so I don't
Yeah.
know how much time we're going to spend on it today. But this is Toralf, God of Fury. It's 2 and 2 red for a 5/4 legendary god. Has trample. It says whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent.
Yeah. And then it
So
has
basically, he lets you like change chain damage around.
yeah. And then the backside is Torof's Hammer for 1 in a red. It's an equipment. Equipped creature has 1 in a red. Tap. Unattached Torof's Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target. Return Torof's Hammer to its owner's hand.
Yeah,
And then the equipped creature gets +3/+0 as long as it's legendary and equipped as 1 in a red.
yeah. The equipment is not great.
It is not great.
I don't think I ever play this as the equipment.
No, the only thing that's good about the equipment is it's a 6 mana deal 3.
Well, it's a 6 mana deal 3, draw another deal 3.
Yeah, but still, it's a 6 mana deal 3 that lets you draw another 6 mana deal 3. But it's not super
Right.
efficient. But what that
No.
does, it gives you a way to like
Spend infinite mana.
spend infinite mana. Well, you have to have creatures to tap,
Right.
but
Oh, yeah.
it gives you a way to start your Toralf chain. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
that's what it's there to kickstart the Toralf.
Yeah.
I think this could definitely be like, the like in a big red deck as like a 2 of, like the like
Okay.
you know the the 4 mana slot in the red decks is kind of full with Torbrand.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like this isn't nearly as good as a Torbrand.
Right.
So, but like with a Torbrand, like making all your things deal more damage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then this like pairs really well.
Right. It turns all your lightning bolts into lava axes that like trample.
Yeah, but you don't like. I don't know how you would like make that split. Like, how many Torbrands do I want, and how many Toralfs do I want, and why does everyone's name be Tor? I don't know.
I don't know.
Right, but like that spot in Red's curve is really crowded.
Yeah, and you also have like, was it Leyline Tyrant is a 4-drop also?
And that is it. Tectonic.
Yeah,
Giant?
the giant.
Yeah, like that guy. Like, there's a bunch of 4-drops, and I don't know how much better this is than any of the other ones.
Right.
But it is interesting as like an effect that we've not seen before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just in a really crowded spot because like seemingly all the good like red
Medium
cards are
red
4
stuff.
mana. Yeah, it's like 4 mana.
Yeah.
Speaking of 4 mana medium red stuff.
So we're changing gears a little bit here. These next cards, we're kind of talking about synergies. We had a couple listeners asking us to specifically talk about synergies, not necessarily cards. So these are all kind of some synergies that I picked out. So these first 2 are giants that obviously they synergize because they're giants. The first is Calamity Bearer. It's 2 red for a 3/4 giant berserker, and says if a giant source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So kind of gives double strike, kind of. Like it's not actually 2 separate sources of damage for like things that care about that, but it does double your damage output.
Yeah, like it's a 3/4, it like deals damage like it's a 6/4.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we also have Quakebringer, which is 3 red for a 5/4. It's a giant berserker. It says your opponents can't gain life, and at the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield or if Quakebringer is in your graveyard and you control a giant. And this foretells for 2 red. I thought this was interesting because it triggers from your graveyard, so you can trade it off. And Calamity Bearer doubles it, right?
It should, because it should
a giant
still
source.
be a giant source, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, and, you know, we've already talked, Bone Crusher fits in at the 3 mana spot. Like, kill their 2-drop, play your Bone Crusher, play your Calamity Bearer, attack for 8 with your Bone Crusher.
Yeah, and we also talked about a couple other cards that care about giants, like Glimpse the Cosmos cares about giants. It lets you, you know, draw a bunch of extra cards, and your Battle of Frost and Fire. It makes, like, if you're playing giants, it's a one-sided wrath.
Yep.
So, I just thought that was a... Oh, go ahead.
We also have Rome Cloak Giant. That is a one-sided wrath in white. If you're all giants.
I don't know if you want to wreck your mana, though.
Yeah.
Although I guess you could be, like, if you didn't want to play blue, but I think that the anticipates, like, a strong enough draw to be blue that you don't want white.
Yeah. But you said one-sided wrath. I was like, oh,
that mana's got to be awful, though.
It is.
Like, all the giants are double red, and then you're trying to cast double white spells.
Yeah. All right. Then we have some elf synergies.
Yeah, the elves. These 2 kind of also go together. We have Scumfar Avenger is 1 and a black for a 3/1 elf berserker. Whenever another non-token elf or berserker you control dies, you draw a card and lose a life. And Elvish Warmaster is 1 and a green for a 2/2 elf warrior. Whenever 1 or more other elves enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. This ability triggers only once per turn. And 5 green elves you control get +2/+2 and death touch until end of turn. I know they don't combo with each other because one says non-token and one makes tokens, but they both want you to play a bunch of elves. Like one is a payoff for playing the elves, and one is insurance if the elves die.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There could be an elf deck there. Like elves is almost there in historic. Like it's pretty close.
I mean, if you think about like modern, if you're playing like green black elves in modern, like you could see like Skimfar Avenger as like being a sideboard card.
Yeah.
Where you bring it in against a control deck because if you get Wrath, you get 3 cards back or whatever.
Yeah. Like Elvish Warmaster, I think, could see play in some of the older formats too. It's like the activated ability is part of an Azuri. Mm-hmm. And there are certainly circumstances in Modern where I would like to have more than 4 Dwynen's Elites in my deck. And Elvish Warmaster is pretty close to Dwynen's Elite, like 5 and 6.
Yeah, where you have to wait till the next turn to get the elf, but you do get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you play it on 2, you could play it on 3 and then a 1-drop and get your elf too.
Yeah.
Like if you have a Heritage Druid and you play like Warmaster, Llanowar Elf, make a guy, tap for 3 mana, play an Archdruid, like that's pretty good.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I hadn't thought of it as like extra Heritage Druid or Dwynen's Elites.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dwynen's Elite's kind of what makes that deck tick. And like I said, there are certainly times where I would rather have, another Dwynen's Elite than Elvish Visionary.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
I don't know, something interesting to think about.
Now we have 2 red cards, and I see how they go together.
Okay, how do these 2 cards go together?
So you have Magda, Brazen Outlaw, 1 in the red for a 2/1. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure. So it doesn't have to attack. It can crew a vehicle or activate some ability. And then you can sacrifice 5 treasures to search your library for an artifact or dragon card and put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
Okay.
So, wants you to make treasures is a payoff for having treasures.
Right.
Goldspan Dragon. 3 red for a 4/4 flying haste. When it attacks or becomes the target of a spell or ability, you make a treasure, and all your treasures make double mana. So
I wonder how they go together.
I don't know. Magda's making your treasures on the low end, and you could, in theory, sacrifice them to go get a Goldspan Dragon if you don't have one.
Right.
Or Magda makes you some treasures, you play your Goldspan Dragon, then Goldspan Dragon pays you off by being free.
Right.
So they work well together where Magda's kind of powering him up in the early game, and then he gets to eat all those treasures and let you do something really big on your turn 5.
Yep.
Again, in these mythical like big red decks, you're like, oh, Magda, get a couple treasures, Goldspan Dragon, play Nugan.
Yeah. Whew.
Good talk, everyone.
So I just had a really quick thought that's probably terrible, but I thought I'd bring it up here. You kind of piqued my interest when you said that you can tap your dwarves for things other than crewing vehicles. Didn't we just get a new Loam Dryad?
We did.
So that kind of combos pretty well with Magda. You get to tap it for a mana and then get a treasure.
Mm-hmm. On turn 2, right? So like you go like I forget what it's called. It's a 1 mana 1/2 with reach.
Yeah.
That when you tap it, you can tap it in an untapped creature to make 1 mana. So you can go like that guy into Magda, and you automatically get a treasure.
Yeah.
And like it effectively makes Magda free on turn 2. So then you can play another 2-drop.
Yeah, it does make it free.
Yeah.
That seems pretty good too.
If you wanted to go that route, or you could just go like. Also, if you do that, even if you don't spend the mana, the next turn you get the Goldspan Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Because because you get like you hopefully get your 3rd land,
right?
A treasure, a mana from tapping the thing in Magda, and then your treasure.
Yep.
Goldspan attack. Now you have 2 treasures. That's 4 mana.
Yeah.
So that is like a ridiculous like spend 9 mana on turn 3.
Yeah, seems pretty good.
Draw. You will win every game you do that.
Probably.
I don't know how many other games you will win, but every game you do that, you will win.
Yeah, I mean you're playing Loam Dryad, so
Yeah. But yeah, and you'll lose every game that your turn 5 play is Lone Dryad go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so both a treasure generator and then, a thing they both generate and pay you off for treasures. They're both like self-contained.
Yep.
So yes, I think there's definitely the makings of a big red deck.
Yeah, I think so too. There was one other synergy that I wanted to talk about that's not really like self-contained here, but kind of like we were talking about with that weird like death touch thing that's happening.
Yes.
Is we kind of have like a removal tribal deck happening. Like in this set, we have Serulf Realm Eater. It's 1 black-green for a 3/3 legendary wolf. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls dies or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if Serulf has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may remove all of them. If you do, exile each other non-land permanent with CMC less than or equal to the number of counters removed. And then we also have like Chevelle from Ikoria.
Okay, yeah.
That like puts bounty counters on things, and then you kill the things, and you get to draw cards.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like a strange thing to do, to have like things that care about removal and like things that care about death touch. And not that I think it's particularly good. I think like your removal has to be very flexible to make a deck like this work. And I don't know that the removal's that flexible right now, like the efficient removal at least. So I don't know if it's good, but it's weird, right?
Yeah. That they keep kind of making these like rock cards.
Yeah.
They're like, can the rock be good now? And it's like you printed all these other cards that make the rock awful.
Yeah, you printed Uro, like, no, rock's not.
Rock can't be good. Oh, you banned Uro? You still printed Croxa. Rock can't be good.
Yeah.
All right. So this one is a card I wanted to talk about. It got snuck in at the end. If we want to fit with our theme of synergies, the front side of this card and the back side of this card work very well together.
They synergize with each other.
Yeah, both sides of the card synergize with each other. Yeah. So, Cosima, God of the Voyage, is a 2 and a blue for a 2/4, and just is a wall of text. So, at the beginning of your upkeep, you can exile him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If it's exiled, you may put a voyage counter on it. And if you decide not to put a voyage counter on it, he comes back to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter equal to the number of voyage counters on it. Okay. And you draw that many cards.
Huh.
And now the backside is, 70% of Looter Scooter. Yeah. It's 1 in the blue for a 3/3 vehicle with crew 1. So everything I said there is just dangerous and has been banned on before. Right. And it has whatever any vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player. That player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may put lands from among those cards. You may play lands from among those cards for as long as they remained exiled.
Oh, and that's not tied to this card either.
Nope. Those cards get the ability. So if it just then dies, you still get to play them.
Wow.
So you hit them with your Omen Keel, the vehicle. Yep. You get to look at 3 cards. You exile them. Any lands you can play. So if you have a Cosima in exile, you're feeding it voyage counters by using the vehicle. And then eventually you can bring back your Cosima for a whole bunch of cards.
Yeah.
So I heard it described on Arena Deck List as like Hydroid Krasis, right? But instead of Hydroid Krasis, right, you ramp, then you play your Krasis. This you play before you start ramping. And then you put it away. So like imagine a situation where you play this on 3, and then you go land, put a voyage counter on it.
Yeah.
And then you play Migration's Path, put 2 voyage counters on it.
Ooh.
Now, the next land you play, you can decide to just have it come back as, at that point, a 5/7.
5/7 and draw 3 cards.
And draw 3 cards.
Wow.
Cool. All right? Or like, you've ramped and let's say you have a Genesis Ultimatum in your hand.
Oh, God.
Okay, cool. I'll do that.
Yeah.
And I'll put the lands in play there. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Now I can draw some cards.
Yeah.
Right, like this is it's kind of backwards, where normally you ramp really hard into your payoff.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you play your payoff, and then you ramp.
Right.
And then you get to decide when you, like, get to use your payoff.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you already know you've drawn your payoff. If, like, you get to hide it away on turn 3, you're like, cool. Yeah. I know my payoff's there. So, like, it makes it harder to ramp into nothing.
Yeah.
And it has the, like, fun side effect of it blocks for a turn.
Yeah.
Right? You're like,
I mean, like, 4 toughness is a lot for, like, a 3-drop, too.
Yeah, so you're like, play my 2/4, block your attack, put him away, and then, like, you know, land, ramp, and then in a turn, get him back, get some cards, and then have a giant blocker.
Yeah.
Right, like, here's my 5/7, your go.
Yeah, seems sweet.
Yeah. So, and, like, the vehicle seems, like, really strong.
Yeah.
And the vehicle feels like, you know, you could also just play this vehicle in, like, a totally different deck.
Like, just as the vehicle?
Yeah. Right, again, like, that mono blue tempo deck. A 2-mana 3/3 is just a beating.
Right.
And you're just like, okay, here you go. I'm just going to crew this with, like, dorky flyers or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like, rogues might play this just for the mill.
Well,
like, just as the Omen Keel.
Oh, just to, like, to help mill them out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, cool. I guess we're just going to go on this plan now.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know how close Rogues is to being just a mill deck instead of, like, a tempo-y whatever, but...
Too close to being just a mill deck. Like, that's
what I mean, though. Like, does this put it over the edge of, you know, just being a mill deck?
I don't know. Like, it's hard because it doesn't, like, super synergize well with Soaring Thought Thief. Cause, right. I guess you only need 1 rogue to attack, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I guess it doesn't matter then. Like, if you go, like, Thieves Guild Enforcer into Soaring Thought Thief, and then you, like, play this, and you're like, crew it with my Thieves Guild Enforcer and attack.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It could. Like, I've not played a lot, but I've watched a lot of videos, and, like, the number of times, like, it feels like people just lose to, like, a turn 1, stupid
crab.
Hedron crab? Or not Hedron crab, whatever it's called. Ruin crab. Yeah, you're just like, oh. Like, this is awful. Like, you have to, like, play the game where you fight the mill.
Right.
Plus you fight the like, life total plan.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I can't do both. I guess I lose. Like, I have 8 removal spells, and I have to kill every crab and all these rogues. And then they Loris me and I die. So, no, I think this is just a unique way to do a ramp payoff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just weird that you play it
it's
first.
Interesting.
Yeah,
like,
you just play it first.
I think the thing that holds it back is, like, you kind of compared it to Krasis.
Mm-hmm.
Krasis has evasion.
Yeah.
Like, the Omen Keel definitely wants to connect. It doesn't do anything unless it connects. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have any evasion.
And the God side just becomes, like, a big idiot.
Right. It's, like, keyword big that draws you some cards.
Yeah. But, I mean, drawing you some cards might be good enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, if obviously you can find removal for whatever's blocking it or whatever, and hopefully it gets through eventually, but
even if it didn't get big, right? Imagine if it was just, like, an uncounterable, like, draw 5.
I don't think you can really call it uncounterable, though, because you have to resolve it, and it has to survive a turn.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is once you hide it away,
Yeah.
you know that it's like that it's going to pay you off, and you're not going to get it countered.
Yeah.
But you are right that it does have to survive a turn. But right, that could be it can be a detriment, right? Because it could just get killed. But it could also be like, oh, I get to block a 2/2.
Yeah.
Or it holds off an attack for a turn and gives you that turn to get your feet under you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not like Krasis in that, like, Krasis being a flampler.
Right.
But it does do that thing where it's just like, play all your lands. All you want to do is play lands. This is going to, like, make you happy for playing your lands.
Yeah. It's interesting for sure. It's definitely a weird design.
Also, like, in all those blue-green, like, Tatiova commander decks,
Oh, yeah.
like, this is just, you're just like, oh, I'm going to draw a million cards one of these turns.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Like, how many cards are in your hand? All of them. It doesn't matter.
Half my deck.
Yeah. I will now discard the hand size.
Right.
Like, oh, no, Reliquary Tower. Never mind. Yeah. All right.
So that's all the cards that we have. If you have a minute, we still do have kind of 2 questions that were asked that aren't necessarily tied to cards.
Okay.
Do you want to touch on them real quick?
We can.
No Butt Rice wants to know, in our opinions, what are the best synergies in this set? I think mine is pretty evident. I've talked about it for like 2 weeks now. The first deck I'm going to brew is probably Snow. I think the Snow payoffs are super powerful. All of the things that we talked about previously, Jorn, Narfi, the Frost Augur, the Spirit, Blizzard Brawl is like a fight spell. The 3 seasons, like you pointed out, plus the Draugr Necromancer that we talked about last week, I think are all pretty strong reasons to be in Snow. And there's not a whole lot of downside, I don't think.
I think the biggest downside for Snow is if you play a lot of Snowlands, it does become hard to go into 3 colors.
Yeah.
But you can get around that.
Yeah, and I don't think that you have to be hard 3 colors though. Like you can definitely be like Simic splashing black for like the backside of Jorn and Draugr Necro, and like your front, like the only other black card in the deck is probably Narfi that you kind of don't want to cast anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, there's also like, you're looking at Sultai, but there's also like Tetrafumarole and Frostbite in red.
Right.
But, like there might be a green-red Snow deck.
Yeah, could be.
Well. But no, I think that Snow is the thing that is the like energy of this set.
Yeah.
Where there's not
it's a block monster.
Yeah, there's not going to be a single other like Snow card printed
right
in any other set.
Yep.
It's just going to be this. And if this stuff is good enough, right, if it's energy and it's the best deck in the format, it doesn't get any cards added to it.
Right.
For as long as it's the best deck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like, it probably can't be the best deck for as long as Throne's in Standard.
Yeah.
But, no, I agree. I think that this is the strongest, like, synergies from this set of Snow. I think that if you look at, like, what is it called? All of the Changeling stuff, I think we said before, is, I think, just there to support the party mechanic.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't be surprised if Party came back for Forgotten Realms too.
Yeah,
like
or
now that we know we have Changeling as like some additional support for it.
Yeah, or maybe not Party, but something else that's very like cares about tribe kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think that the overarching synergy for the set is Snow, but then you've got the Changelings that are supporting the party stuff going back.
Yep.
How playable is Foretell?
Yeah, MTG aggro player wanted to know how playable Foretell was.
I think that the big question you have to ask is like how aggressive the format is.
Yeah.
Can you just
the second turn off.
Can you take turn 2 off to just do nothing? Yep. Right. So I think that like the Doomscar lets you catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like you're fine like playing your Doomscar, right? But the Foretell draw spell, maybe not.
Yeah.
Right. I think you play the Foretell draw spell because it's a reasonable draw spell, right. But you're not playing it because it foretells.
Right.
If you get to foretell it, great. But but if like Gruul or like mono green aggro is the best deck, mm-hmm. right? If you're like taking your turn 2 and not affecting the board in any way, and you're not catching up with Doomscar, like, do you just get rolled?
Yeah, probably.
So, like, does it work? How does that work? So, right. I think that there will be a few Foretell cards that get played in Standard,
mm-hmm.
but I don't foresee there, like, being, like, a Foretell deck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's not really... I don't think any of the payoffs are constructed power level.
No.
Like, all the payoffs for Foretell are for limited.
Yeah.
And like as far as considering something a Foretell deck, I think some of those payoffs would have to be better. Now, like you said, I do think Foretell will see play, but for it to be a Foretell deck, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, so I think that the cards that with Foretell that will see play are cards that you would play even if they didn't have Foretell.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, Foretell is a nice bonus that might let you spend your mana a little more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But Standard is usually a format that is, like, so hyper efficient.
Yep.
And, like, penalizes you for not using your mana effectively.
Right.
Right? And so the question is spending 2 mana to save 2 mana or 1 mana on a future turn, is that an effective use of your mana, or can your opponent punish you?
Yeah.
Because, like, imagine a situation where it's like, 1, 2, 3, you didn't do anything, and then maybe you get to kill a thing, and then you just get Embercleaved out of the game on 4, and your Foretell card's just sitting there, and, like, you just wasted that mana.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't do anything with it. They were just, like, 1 drop into, Fervent Champion into, what's it called? The rogue guy, Robber of the Rich, played a Bone Crusher Giant or
Annex,
and then, like, just was like, here's an Embercleave, and you're like, oh man, I'm so far behind.
Present you Embercleave.
Yeah, and, like, you're like, oh, you got to, like, counter the Embercleave. You're like, oh, I still take 1 million here.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get to use this mana now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if the format's super mid-rangey, right, or, like, slower,
mm-hmm.
right, then it gets better. And, like, I think the thing that could help Foretell is because you're spreading the mana out, it's going to give you a chance to, like, double spell more later in the game against, like, a rogues kind of deck.
Yes.
Right? Where you're like, I'm going to play this thing, and they're like, counter it. And you're like, cool, I'm going to play this Foretold thing. And I only had to pay 2 mana, so I got to double spell, and I got to resolve one of these spells.
Yep.
As opposed to, like, I can't play my 4 mana draw 2 because I don't have 4 mana now.
Mm-hmm.
I can play a threat and then resolve my draw 2 and, like, kind of refill and stay in the game.
I'm on board. I agree.
So, all right. And with that, we have a very long show.
We do. Thanks for sticking it out, guys.
Yeah. So if you'd like to tweet at us any other cards you thought we missed or things you're excited about, you can get at us at CasualTryPod on Twitter.
Absolutely. You can also hit us up on Facebook at CasualTryHardMTG or drop us an email at show@CasualTryHardMTG.com. Don't forget, if you're looking to pick up any Kaldheim cards, they do offer pre-orders, or, if you want to wait a week and order some actual singles, please use our TCG Player affiliate link, tcg.casualtryhardmtg.com. Anything you purchase after following that link will get a cut up to help keep the show rolling. As always, please consider becoming one of our patrons, even if it's only for, a couple bucks or whatever you can afford. It'll help us to grow the show and help keep it rolling, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to get back into stores and grow our community some. You can do so at patreon.com/CasualTryHardMTG. Also, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I was able to score a whole bunch of Zendikar promo pack arena codes. So hop into our Discord, go into the free room, or shoot me a message. I'm Greasy Jockey on there, and I can distribute a ton of these things. You're allowed to cash in 4 per account. So hit me up. I'll send you 4 codes, and you can get some sweet packs on Arena.
Sounds good. And with that, we'll catch you on the internet.
Catch you on the internet.